Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is exit strategies. There are a few options when buying properties. The most popular is flipping, which can have a large profit, but also carries the most risk. So another is buy and holds, which is also known as rentals. Buy and holds may be the best exit strategy in an area where active listings are sitting longer or if there's a high demand for rentals. If the property is in an exceptional area, you may want to turn it into a short-term rental. Typically, short-term rentals can make 2 to 3 times as much money as regular rentals. Another popular exit strategy is to wholesale properties. Wholesaling means getting a property under contract and then selling that contract to another investor. If you find an amazing deal, the wholesaler may make as much money assigning the contract to another investor as they would if they rehabbed it themselves, minus the time and headaches. So, next time a deal comes across your desk, check out all your options before you make a decision. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us my new friend, Lorraine Millington. Lorraine is the founder and CEO of Melanin Homes. Melanin Homes is a real estate solutions company specializing in passive income investing strategies through mortgage note investing nationwide. The team at Melanin Homes is a trusted partner within the secondary mortgage market, which provides the ability to work directly with investors who are looking for truly positive cash flow assets, highly competitive returns on their investment, and the opportunity to become the bank. I have been looking forward to this interview because I don't know anything about note investing. So welcome to the show, Lorraine Millington.
Yes, thank you, Jen. It is amazing to be here. By the way, I absolutely love your intro. I might have to actually borrow that from my podcast, but it's really great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I got that from Fiverr, just so you know.
Oh,
it was like $35.
Fiverr saves most of our businesses, let me tell you.
I know it.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to have you on the show. I just met you through a dear friend, Sean Tiberio, through his program that he has. And we were kind of chatting on one of the,
weekly
webinar
calls that we have.
Thank you. It's 9:00 in the morning, folks. So I'm slow starting right now. But on one of our calls, you were there and I was like, ooh, I like her. So I am super excited to get to hang out with you this morning. So tell the audience a little bit about you. You are in Brooklyn. So tell us about where you grew up and how you got into real estate, all that fun stuff.
So I am in New York City. I'm actually in the Bronx, at the Boogie Down Bronx, as we like.
I can't believe I just said Brooklyn. I had said the Bronx. I don't know how many.
It's one of the 5 boroughs, so it's all fine. I mean, I'm close to Brooklyn. I actually can hop, skip, and jump over to Brooklyn, so it's really not that far. I've been in Bronx, born and raised all of my life. Sort of got into real estate investing. Sort of just looking at, we're in New York, right? We're in the land of opportunity. And so when I started to research different ways to not only increase my income, but diversify the different industries that I was involved in, I said, you know what? Let me get started with real estate investing. And this journey through real estate has been incredible. I mean, to your point, what you mentioned in the beginning about exit strategies, I feel like I've went through most of them. The wholesaling, the rehabbing, the buy and holds. And what it ultimately led me to was mortgage note investing. And I'm going to touch upon what exactly mortgage note investing is in just one second. But I do want to say that through mortgage note investing, you have the flexibility to wholesale, to rehab, to buy and hold, to do so many different things. So once I describe it, I hope people are really interested to know how they can get involved.
And this is why I brought you here, because I have literally sat through meetings where the speaker is discussing notes and I walk out of the room. I'm like, yeah, still don't understand what the hell he just said. So,
yeah.
But I do want to touch really quickly. How did you get into real estate?
So actually, it stemmed from my family. So my grandmother, she came here when she was in her early 30s from Jamaica. And she's one of the first, yes.
I'm going there. I'm going there this year, like in September.
Maybe like tomorrow, because it's so cold here. Let's just go tomorrow. Let's just do the podcast from Jamaica.
You should go with me. I'm attending a real estate mastermind out there.
So you mean to tell me we're going to be on the beach and it's tax deductible?
And it's tax deductible. I'm there. I'm telling you, it's called TAB, the absolute best retreat. You got to check it out. It's in September. Like literally, I all inclusive.
Literally might be there.
Okay. This is where we're going to meet in person finally. Okay. So keep going.
Yes.
So your grandmother.
So my grandmother, she came here from Jamaica. And one of the first things that she did when she came to this country was purchase a multifamily property. And it's through that insight and that foresight that she had to recognize that real estate is one of the cornerstones to not only building wealth, but building generational wealth. And so when I started to recognize the opportunities that she created for us, I wanted to build upon that. I want to grow and scale the foundation that she put in place for us, and then put it in place for my next generations and thereafter. So that's really what started to pique my interest, and then take it a step further and actually start a real estate investment company.
And another thing we have in common is we both were students at Fortune Builders.
Yes. Fortune Builders gave me the start, or the sort of the systems that I needed to sort of get started with real estate investing. And that's very important, is having systems and strategies and processes in place.
And I appreciate you saying that, because so many of my listeners are like just starting to get involved, or maybe they are part of an education program, and it just reinforces that having those systems in place, it's huge. So I love that. All right, let's get down to basics. Lorraine, you're gonna have to talk to me like I'm a second grader. Explain to me what the hell investing with mortgage notes, what is it?
Sure. So when we talk about mortgage note investing, essentially what we're speaking about is purchasing debt. So when we're a mortgage note investor, we're purchasing the debt associated with property instead of purchasing the property itself in most situations. If you're doing lease options, then technically you are purchasing the property, but for the sake of just keeping this pretty simple and not confusing the audience too much, we'll just stick with purchasing the debt associated with property. And so kind of taking you through a timeline. So, and I'll use you as an example, Jen. So let's say you're going to purchase a property, right? Most people, when they're going to purchase a home or purchase a property, they're going to a bank or to a credit union to be able to apply for a mortgage. So when you're applying for a mortgage, or when you're getting a mortgage, what you're signing is a promissory note. And essentially what that promissory note is saying is that I promise to repay however much you're borrowing at a certain interest rate over a certain length of time. And so this promissory note outlines all of those terms. And then you, as the borrower, are signing this to say, okay, yes, I promise to pay back this money. As you continue to make your payments, you are performing on your promise to make your mortgage payment. So this is considered a performing note. You, as the borrower, are making your payments on time to a Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a Chase, those types of institutions. And so that is a performing note. If you, as the mortgage note investor, now step into the place of the Bank of America, the Chase, and the Wells Fargo, so now you, even though you are an individual, you are now the bank. So instead of the borrower making payments to Bank of America, now they're making payments to Bank of Jen. And hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. So to dumb it down for me a little bit more. So
Sure.
I own a house. I'm paying my mortgage.
Correct.
It's what you're calling a performing note, correct?
Correct.
And then how do you buy my mortgage?
So banks, credit unions, hedge funds are generally the owners of these notes. And so when you think about the life of a note, most mortgages are 15 years or 30 years. So banks, because banks are in the business of making money. So in order for them to maximize the amount of money that they're lending, they will usually look to sell the mortgages that they have in their portfolio after a certain amount of time. And the reason why they're doing that is because they've already made most of their money up front. And so now selling this mortgage to a secondary investor, they're just receiving the lump sum that they can now package and re-lend out to someone else. It's basically like a rinse and repeat type of model. So this is how banks make money. They make money off of lending money, not necessarily holding on to money.
Okay.
So
that makes sense
yes.
to me. I get that.
Okay.
But me, as I'm paying Bank of America, and then all of a sudden it switches to Lorraine Millington, do I have control over that?
No.
Ah.
Because the Bank of America, the Chase, the Wells Fargo, they are the owners of the debt. They are the owners of the lien. So if they decide that they want to sell this to another company, they have the ability to do so. It's very similar to, like a collections process. If anyone has ever, owed a debt to an organization, and then that organization then sells it to a collections company, they have the right to do that because they are the owners of the debt. So it's very similar in this situation.
So what is the benefit for you?
Me, the investor?
Yeah, buying that note.
So you're purchasing debt with the anticipation of receiving that money back plus interest. So when we think about a mortgage, again, let's just take a 30-year mortgage, for example.
Okay.
That first 5 to 7 years, roughly, is mostly interest payments that are being paid by the borrower. So you as the investor, I'll just throw out some easy numbers here for the sake of explanation. If I purchase a note for $25,000 and I'm getting back, let's just say maybe $600 to $700 per month of a payment, most of that payment is going to interest, especially in the beginning stages of that mortgage. Mm-hmm. So me as the investor, that interest is straight profit that I'm receiving back as part of my investment. And then the remainder is paying down the principal. But think about how long it takes for you to actually pay down the principal when most of your payment is going to interest. So you as the investor, you make a one-time payment of however much it is, and then that money is continuing to come back to you twofold. So it's basically putting your money to work for you instead of you physically having to go out and swing a hammer or take out the trash or make repairs to a building. It's actually, this is the true definition of passive income.
So you buy a note for, say, $300,000.
Right. So
you've put out $300,000, and then you're
Correct.
now just getting monthly payments coming in. So it's a place
Correct.
to kind of park your money.
Exactly, especially if it is a performing note. Now, I can touch upon what happens if the borrower happens to stop paying, which is considered a non-performing note. And in that situation, some people would think like, okay, I understand, throwing good money after good, if I'm putting money towards a situation where the borrower is paying me back over time, that makes sense. But why would I want to purchase something where I'm not getting any money back, at least not initially? And the reason why you would do that is because now if you're purchasing a non-performing note where the borrower is no longer making their payments, you as the bank still have control over the property. You don't own the property, but you have control over it. And so what that means is that if this borrower stops paying, you have the ability to now foreclose on this property and potentially now regain possession of the property and then wholesale it, rehab it, do a buy and hold, perform those sort of exit strategies. So this is why I was mentioning earlier the flexibility in mortgage note investing.
Okay, and I know we're going to get into 5 steps on how to get started, but where does one find notes to buy?
Right. So, and a lot of this is in relationship building and networking, because Joe Schmo off the street can't just necessarily walk into a bank and say, hey, by the way, can you show me all your books? I'd like to buy 123 Main Street out of your portfolio. A lot of times to get involved with this type of mortgage loan investing, you have to be an accredited investor. And what that means is that you have to have a certain amount of assets within your portfolio or have liquid cash and assets available in order to be able to get started. So I have the ability, if anyone is interested in getting involved with this, of having relationships with the banks and the hedge funds and the credit unions who are selling this type of inventory. So I guess a long answer to your question is that you would have to kind of be in the know or be aligned with people who already have these relationships with these institutions, or just have a couple $1 million just sitting in the bank, ready to make investments. So
are there a lot of notes available for purchase?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, yes. You think about, and obviously we're all in real estate. How many people are actually able to buy houses outright? I mean, yes, we are investors and we know that that's an ability of being able to purchase homes for cash. But I would say 95% of the debt that is available right now, especially in real estate, is mortgages or contracts for deeds. So there's a ton of inventory available.
And this is a long game. So you're putting a chunk of money in and just getting paid monthly for it. So would this be a good investment for someone out of their, say, self-directed 401k?
Absolutely.
Self-directed IRA, excuse me.
I think you've done this before, because that is absolutely one of the perfect vehicles to be able to invest in mortgage notes. And
the reason why I say that is because your self-directed IRA, you can, purchase properties out of that. You can, if it's structured that way, you can.
Correct.
We lend out of ours, but this is something where, as an active lender, a private money lender, even though it's, called passive, you still have to wire it to the closing. You have to find some place. You have to find someone with a deal at the time when you get your money back. So there's a lot of, passing it from here to there. And so it isn't completely passive, but this is something where I can literally just take money out of there, park it somewhere, and then the interest that is earned. So those monthly payments go right back into my self-directed, correct? Okay.
Absolutely. All right. Yep. And this is one of the ways. So when we sort of compare this, if you will, to a rehabbing strategy or a buy and hold, the situation that you just described in terms of investing in your self-directed IRA, that is a way to create a tax shelter within this strategy to be able to invest in real estate and then have all of the money go back into the IRA, to your point, depending on how it's set up. And then most of the time, the profits and the interest that is in that account is growing tax-free, as opposed to maybe if you're doing a buy and hold or a rehab strategy where you have depreciation and some of those other tax benefits. That's how you can get it with the mortgage note investing.
And that's
a great point.
What about 1031 exchange? So if somebody moves and they have to park their money somewhere, is this something they can do it in?
So because with notes, you aren't purchasing the physical property, you're purchasing the debt, 1031 exchanges, at least to my knowledge, are not applicable in these types of situations. 1031 exchanges, especially because they recently changed the rules around 1031 exchanges. I want to say maybe a couple of years ago. It has to apply to physical property.
And then I hope this is my last question for now.
No, please.
What if you purchased a note? What if you want to get out of it? What if you've changed your mind, or maybe you've gone in, you need that money for some other type of investment? So how does that work to get out of it?
there's a couple of situations of how you can get out of a note. So let's say you're involved in a performing note, and maybe you don't want to wait the full 20 years or whatever's left on the mortgage to recoup your full investment. A couple of things that you can do. One is called selling partials. So I'm gonna give an example, and hopefully it won't sound too confusing. So let's say you purchased a note that has 20 years left on it. So I'm just going to give an example. Let's say there's 100 payments left on this particular mortgage. And then you as the note investor are saying, this has been great, but I don't really want to wait for 20 plus years again to get the remaining amount of my investment. I'm going to sell 50 of these payments to another investor. So I'm going to sell partial of what is left on the mortgage to another investor so I can get that lump sum and then maybe throw that into another real estate deal or whatever the case may be. And then once those 50 payments that I sold to this other investor are completed, then I'll pick up the remaining 50 payments because I still like the idea of having some passive income or some cash flow coming in. So that's one example. Just selling half of what you have left in order to be able to get a lump sum of your money to do whatever it is you need to do with that.
So if that's 20 years, so then you sold off half of them. So then after 10 years, it's going to start picking back up with you again, and you'll start.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct. Okay. So that's one option. The other option is just you can sell your note to another investor. There are lots of investors out here who just like the idea of getting what we like to term mailbox money, just putting money toward an investment and then having the checks come in monthly like clockwork. So there's a whole market out there of people who would love to be able to purchase truly passive income assets, or you can do a partial.
Lorraine, you are so good at explaining this because, I said at the beginning, I've been looking forward to this interview because I know so many, well, not a lot, but there are people who invest literally just in notes. And I'm like, what do they really do? So thank you for dumbing it down for me because that was huge. I think it's clicking now. So I get it. So now I want you to explain. There are steps for getting started in mortgage note investing. And you mentioned being accredited, things like that. But let's start with number one, which you have down here is your legal entity.
Yes. And so I'm sure most of your audience is aware of this, but when we're thinking about investing, especially investing in real estate, we want to make sure that we are protected at all costs. And so it is very important to have a legal entity in place, whether that's an LLC, whether that's a corporation, or as you've mentioned earlier, either a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k. These are vehicles that are put in place to make sure that if we're investing, it is not in our individual name. And especially when we're talking about mortgage note investing and being the bank in these transactions, it is very important, at least from my opinion, to make sure that we do not have these assets in our name. Just imagine if you're paying your mortgage and you go to look it up and you see Lorraine Millington there. Like who is this person? I mean, it takes away, in my opinion, some of the credibility that is associated with us being mortgage note investors and being the bank in these transactions. So, and then when we take it to taxes and that sort of thing, you want to show up as your most authentic self, and doing that, having your liability in place, making sure you're protected is very important. So that is my number one, I would say, to get started, making sure you have an entity in place.
Very important, even with flipping and
wholesale,
all of it, do it through a business name. So
yes.
Excellent. I would not think you'd have to do that here as well, but super important. So number two is capital.
Right. So I mean, it's a bit self-explanatory, but in order to get started with this business, you have to have some money to be able to purchase these assets. And I sort of touched upon in the beginning about being an accredited investor, and you don't have to be an accredited investor in order to get started with mortgage notes. It's a benefit because obviously that means you have liquid cash or you have assets that you would be able to leverage, but If you don't have physical capital, another great option is to be able to partner or joint venture with someone who does have capital. In the time that we're in right now, everyone, well, not everyone, but most people who are investors are looking for ways to diversify their portfolios and really make the most out of the money that they have. Putting in the bank we're basically paying the banks at this point in order to hold our money. So it's not really generating any money there. The stock market, yes, if you're invested in the top 500, the S&P 500, which usually returns about 8 to 10% annually, that is an option. But who wants to constantly be watching the stock market to see whether your money is going up or going down? So the point I guess I'm getting to is that even if you don't have capital yourself, most of the time we know people who have capital that just aren't aware of the different opportunities and options that are available. So while capital is important, I put that down because I want people to understand that even if you don't have it, you know someone who does. And presenting them with an option of how they can make more money on their investment just makes you that much more valuable.
So well said. Oh my goodness. And how does one become accredited, by the way?
So to be an accredited investor, you either have to have $250,000 in the bank liquid or assets, I believe, of $1 million or more. I believe that is the qualification to be an accredited investor. And not most people, especially people starting out, have that sort of liquidity or that sort of leverage within their portfolio. You can become accredited investors through mortgage loan investing. I mean, you think about it, you purchase or you partnered on a couple of notes. How much do mortgages cost? And I'm in New York. So at a minimum, our mortgages are about $500,000 for a single family home. So you could become an accredited investor by purchasing one note, as opposed to maybe having to go through a bunch of flips or a bunch of buy and holds to be able to achieve that same credential.
All right. So number 3 in getting started with mortgage note investing is inventory.
Yes. So I believe you did ask, like how much is available? Like, are there a lot of mortgages? Yes. Inventory is abundant. And I think when especially speaking to real estate investors who are now struggling with finding inventory. I mean, if you're a flipper, if you're a buy and hold, finding inventory that is affordable for what we do within the business has been extremely difficult. So having access to inventory through mortgage loan investing, where you're basically coming in the back door, if you will, to be able to secure some of these assets is huge. And so I put inventory down because you don't have to do a lot of the cold calling and the mass text messaging and all of that stuff to find a distressed seller. If you have the right people on your team, which I think we're going to get to in a minute through the boots on the ground, but if you have the right people on your team, if you have the right connections with the banks and the credit unions and the hedge funds, you have the access to the inventory. The only challenge is understanding what to do with it. If you will. Yeah.
Gotcha. So that leads us into boots on the ground and team members.
Yes.
So explain that part.
Sure. So because at least what we do with mortgage and investing is nationwide, I'm not hopping on a plane every time I want to do due diligence or do research on an asset. And so this is where the boots on the ground come in. This is where we have servicing companies who are basically the middleman between us and the borrower, because even though we are individuals, we have to remember that we are the bank in these situations, and the bank does not call the borrower and say, oh, hey, by the way, your payment is due on the 15th. You're going to be able to make that payment. Like, we don't communicate directly with the borrower, mainly for compliance purposes. But one of our boots on the ground is the servicer to be able to maintain communication with the borrower. We have realtors, because although we are experts in real estate, we are not experts in every single county or every single state within the country. So we do still rely on realtors to give us sort of the lay of the land of the area that we're looking to invest in. Insurance agents, we want to make sure, going back again to liability protection and making sure that we're protected, as lenders, there is lenders insurance that we make sure that we have on these assets to make sure that we're protecting our investment. If we happen to purchase a non-performing note and we are able to take back possession of the property, contractors are also our boots on the ground to make sure that we are performing on the exit strategies, whatever exit strategy that may be. So we have all of these people in place to sort of do the work for us. When we're talking about passive income, we're controlling the show. We own, or excuse me, it's the phrase is own nothing, control everything.
Yep.
And so essentially that is what we are doing, especially when we're in mortgage note investing. We don't own the property, but we are controlling what is happening. And that's primarily done because of the people that we have on our team or our boots on the ground.
Awesome. And so much there. But again, Lorraine, you're so good at this. And the last bullet point you have here is education. So explain a little bit about that.
So I feel that you're either part of an educational platform that will literally teach you A to Z on what a note is, what type of paper we're looking at, because there's different types of paper. It's not just mortgages. We have contracts, we have lease options, that sort of thing. And then the other half of that, if you're not part of an educational program, is really being partnered with someone who is well-versed and experienced within this space. Because you can't, with anything, you should not go into it blindly. And with this being such a niche within the real estate market, you really want to make sure that you either get the education to understand the different nuances. I've even thrown out some terminology on this call that some people might be like, okay, well, what is performing? What is non-performing? Lease options? What is she talking about? Just having the foundational education to understand what the terminology means is super important, not to mention what the process is. And so that's something that I offer to people who are interested in getting involved in this space. Is I offer the opportunity to partner with me so that you don't necessarily have to go through the foundational educational aspect of it. If you have someone like me on your team who's done this, who's been doing this for a number of years now, you can leverage my education and my experience within this space to be able to get started and kind of do a learn while you earn, if you will, within this space. So
learn while you earn. I love that.
Yes.
So how do they find you to connect with you to, start working with you?
Absolutely. So I do offer free consultations for anyone who's interested in not only learning a little bit more, but trying to determine whether or not this strategy is right for you. So you can go to my website, melaninhomes.com, and you'll be able to not only see videos of me sort of going over more of this mortgage note investing strategy, but then it also allows you to schedule a free call with me so that we can kind of speak about your situation in more detail.
Well, you are very good at hand-holding because you dumbed it down for me, and I appreciate it. I definitely feel like I understand this a lot more. And what a great opportunity for people out there who are struggling to get their first deal. And because the inventory is so low and maybe they have a bucket of cash that they are ready to start investing and they can't find it. So what a great opportunity. And thank you for sharing that. And at the beginning of the show, I shared a badassery bestowment, which is I give them a little tip. So do you have a badassery bestowment that you can share with the listeners?
Absolutely. So at least I hope it's badass enough for your audience. But I have compiled a PDF, a free PDF that basically outlines those 5 steps that I spoke about in terms of how to get started with mortgage note investing. So I'd like to offer that to your audience for anyone who's interested in getting involved and just wanting to know some of the preliminary steps that they should have in place.
Well, I appreciate that. I love it when I have guests that give things away for free, and your knowledge is so invaluable, and I truly appreciate it, Lorraine. Thank you so much. So the second half of the podcast is what makes Lorraine a badass, which clearly you are a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
For me, the 48 Laws of Power was actually really enlightening because I found it interesting that the way in which you speak to people really can affect your experience with them moving forward. I mean, and I'll take it back to some of the initial thought that I had when I was reading that book. And it's just like, okay, you don't have to have all of the experience. You don't have to have all of the knowledge. If you're able to just build rapport with someone who has that knowledge and has that experience, you can leverage that and they will be willing to bring you up along with them. And so for me, it was so enlightening because I have spent so much time throughout my adult career wanting to learn as much as I can so I can be as valuable and as important to people as I need to be. But reading the 48 Laws of Power, and not to say that you don't need to do those things, but maybe you can get to where you want to be even quicker by knowing how to network and knowing how to interact and engage with people who are already in that space. So I thought that was super interesting.
Real estate is all about relationships. So if you can build a stronger relationship, who wrote the 48 Laws of Power?
Robert Greene.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know that one. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
All right, the first A in BADASS is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I think I have ever received, and I've received a few comments, but you'll never go broke investing in yourself. And so
love it.
Yeah. and this ties into just one of my goals for 2022, which is self-growth and self-development. But I've always been someone who wants to continue to learn. And so having that mindset and knowing that you want to continue to be the best version of yourself, if you continue to put yourself in situations where you're learning, where you're growing, where you're developing, you're investing in yourself, and that can only pay off. You can never lose in that situation.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yes. And I just completed Commercial Empire with Tim Bratz, and you continually have to invest in yourself. And this is such an industry where there are so many different aspects of it. Yes. And I'm a big believer in it. So thank you for sharing that. The D in BADASS is drive. What drives you to be successful?
I really, when I think about that question, it kind of takes me in a few different directions, to be honest. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is knowing that the better that I am, the more that I can help someone else. And so I think that's the drive in me that continues to make me want to do more and to be better, is because I know that if I can do that for myself, I can only pass on that knowledge and that experience to someone else. So I think that's really what it comes down to for me.
Well said. I love that. See, I knew we were going to be best friends. All right. The second A in BADASS is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal that you are currently working on?
And I think I touched upon it a little bit. It's really self-growth. And, a lot of what I've been doing, especially since deciding to start my real estate investing business, has been business coaching, what I like to term business therapy. Because it really, there's so much that goes into business that is outside of business. And it took me a little while to actually understand that being whole personally will then spill over into what I'm trying to do professionally and in my business. And so once I started to realize that and then again, one of my goals this year is really self-growth and self-development through masterminds, through understanding my behaviors and my triggers and things of that nature. So that's really what I'm planning to work on, not only for this year, but moving forward.
And I was getting a crick in my neck because I was nodding so hard. I'm agreeing with everything that you're saying. All right. The first S in BADASS is systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
If I could outsource almost everything that I do on a daily basis, that would be ideal. I mean, obviously we can't do that, but I would say the systems and the automation. Technology is a beautiful thing, and it could really be not so much of a beautiful thing sometimes. So it's just understanding how you can take advantage or again, leverage technology to be able to automate a lot of the things. So I'm not physically having to do it. And I mean, I don't know if you've picked up a trend here, but the passive income, automation and the outsourcing, I want to be hands off for mostly everything. So I would say that understanding what needs to be outsourced and what can be automated is a big key, because especially being a business owner, we can't do everything. So knowing that in order for me to be successful, in order for me to be able to grow and scale, I need to hand off some things to someone else so that I can better leverage my time or better use my time to help people has been big for me.
And what do you outsource? Do you outsource to, say, virtual assistants, or do you have physical assistants, or?
I don't have physical assistants. What I outsource to is to a team. So I have a team that monitors my website. I have a team that does my social media. I have a team that does my marketing. So it's outsourcing some of what we like to term busy work that might take too much of my time, and that would prevent me from actually being in my business. So yeah, I outsource a lot of things that wouldn't benefit the business or the people that I'm trying to help overall. It's necessary. It's things that need to be done, just not necessarily by me.
And I am actually currently documenting my day by every 15 minutes, because I was told before you hire someone to outsource, you really need to figure out what needs to be outsourced. So it is on my brain right now. And I literally I have worksheets on my desk of every 15 minutes what I do. Man, do I spend a lot of time on social media. But it actually, and in defense to that, it actually helps my business because, like I said before, real estate is relationships. So I can see who's doing what and know who the big players are out there and just keep connecting with my audience. So, all right. The final S is success. What does success mean to Lorraine Millington?
Success. Yeah. And this again is a loaded question, but I feel success to me means balance. So if I have balance, and not only necessarily balance between personal and professional, but balance just overall, holistic balance, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, having all of those things in alignment is success to me. And I mean, there are subcategories within each of those, but I would say holistic balance is success to me.
And that's one of the first things that goes out the window when people start a business, is they feel like they have to do all this busy work and doing all this and do everything all at once, and that you kind of forget about taking care of yourself. So very important. Thank you for that reminder. Before we go, you also have your own podcast. So you have a podcast with Kim and Mickey. So tell the audience what your podcast is.
Sure. So, and thank you for mentioning that. So the name of my podcast is The Real Estate View, and that's View, VUE. And it's really just a play on the three of us, myself, Mickey Sangunza, and Kim Katone Manau. We have a podcast where we are three ladies in real estate. And we thought it was really important to not only highlight the fact that we are three ladies within real estate, but that we also have three different focuses. As you've heard on this podcast, I'm heavy into mortgage loan investing and passive income. Mickey is huge on acquisitions and commercial real estate investing. Kim is a realtor, and she's also with residential real estate and creative financing. So we thought it would be really helpful for not only our audience, but women within real estate to understand that people are doing what you're interested in doing, even if you don't see them represented in the daily aspect of our industry. And so we want to make sure that women are highlighted, women are represented, women are respected within this space. So we oftentimes, and fun fact, Jen is gonna be on our podcast.
That is a fun
rather
fact.
than later, for sure. But we definitely not only discuss topics, but we have guests on our show to be able to share their experience and share their journeys within real estate, and hopefully inspire those who maybe are on the fence or don't really know how to get started.
Well, I love it, especially all women on there, all women badasses. So
That's right.
I love it. And one more time, how can the audience members find you?
Sure. So you can reach me on my website, melaninhomes.com. You'll also be able to find us on Facebook through Melanin Homes, and on Instagram and YouTube. Absolutely. We have videos posted every week or so on the YouTube channel. So definitely check it out if you're looking for more tips and tricks relating to mortgage loan investing.
Well, thank you so much, Lorraine. I can't wait to hang out with you in Jamaica in September, where we will be hanging with 200 other investors, and it'll be awesome. You are amazing. Thank you for teaching me about mortgage note investing, and I just really, really appreciate it. So that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.